The exit plan. Saving in cents, investing in cents. It didn't matter where you lived: New York, Johannesburg, Istanbul. The crisis came like a silent wave. Rent didn't just rise, it exploded. Eggs became a luxury item. One by one, dreams were paused, postponed, or completely erased. It didn't make a sound, but it hit everyone, some sooner, some harder. Amina was 33 when it caught up with her. She was a travel agent, one of the best in her district. She could book you a honeymoon to Greece, a quick business trip to Berlin, or a spiritual retreat in Bali, all without breaking a sweat. Her passport had more stamps than a post office. Her phone never stopped ringing. She was the go-to person for escaping the real world. And then, suddenly, the real world came knocking. Airports closed, planes stayed grounded. Clients cancelled plans, asked for refunds, or simply vanished. The travel desk she worked at shut down indefinitely. Her boss called it a temporary freeze. Amina called it what it truly was, the beginning of the end. At first, she was hopeful. She thought, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month. She dipped into her savings. She watched motivational videos. She lit candles and whispered prayers. But time stretched on, and money ran out. The calls stopped, the bills didn't. One day she found herself staring at a cracked ceiling with $12.74 in her bank account and no idea how the rent would be paid. She skipped breakfast to save for lunch, skipped lunch to save for dinner, then skipped dinner altogether because the power bill had to go first. She didn't tell her friends. What would she even say? That the girl who once sent people around the world couldn't afford a train ticket across town? Her world had shrunk, not by choice, but by force. She sat at her small kitchen table one night, scribbling numbers and crossing out expenses, when she paused. Her pen hovered in the air. There had to be another way. Maybe she couldn't travel anymore. Maybe she couldn't afford comfort. But maybe, just maybe, she could afford a plan. A new kind of plan. And that's when it started. Not with money, but with mindset. At first, Amina tried to stay positive. She still had some savings. She still had her skills. It'll pass, she told her friends. Maybe a few weeks. But weeks turned into months, then more months, and nothing changed. The travel agency never reopened. The borders stayed closed longer than expected. And the job market? Frozen solid. She refreshed job boards daily, sent out CVs to anywhere that didn't require magic to get hired. But there were no replies. Just silence, the kind that feels heavier every day. She thought of going into something new: digital marketing, customer service, maybe remote assistance. But every post asked for years of experience she didn't have, software she'd never used, or a certificate she couldn't afford. Her money got smaller. Bills didn't. One morning, she woke up and stared at her camera, a gift to herself from better times. A Nikon DSLR, once her companion for trips and memories. Now it just sat there, mocking her. She took a photo of it with her phone, posted it online, and listed it for sale. No buyers. A week later, she dropped the price. Still nothing. She knew she needed electricity more than she needed pictures. So she sold a pair of shoes, then a jacket, then some books. She began skipping breakfast, at first to save time, then to save bread. Lunch became her main meal. Dinner disappeared like a polite guest. One night, the lights went out. She had miscalculated the electricity meter. She sat in the dark, wrapped in a blanket, waiting for the morning. She stared at her bank app. 12.74. That was it. That was all. The fridge was empty, except for a half-used ketchup bottle and one lonely tomato. She boiled water for tea, even though there was no tea. She just wanted the feeling of doing something. Her phone buzzed. A message from her landlord. The rent was due again. She turned the phone face down. That was the moment it truly hit her. Nobody's coming to save me. Not the government. Not her old job. Not even friends. They had their own battles now. The system was built to keep people floating just above drowning, and she was already underwater. She had gone from being a helper, someone who planned escapes, to someone who desperately needed one. But escape costs money, and she barely had sense. That night, she stopped wishing things would go back to normal, because normal hadn't protected her. Normal had depended on a world that could vanish in a second. She didn't cry. She was too tired. But she picked up her notebook again. This time, she didn't write expenses. She wrote survival. How much do I need to eat for a week? What can I learn for free online? What skill do I already have? She didn't know the answers yet, but she was done waiting. Amina sat at her kitchen table, the last light bulb flickering above her. In front of her, a cracked notebook and a borrowed pen. She drew a line across the top of the page and wrote in bold letters, "The exit plan." This wasn't a dream board. This wasn't wishful thinking. This was war. Quiet, daily, survival war. The first step? Save in cents. She listed every single thing she spent money on: toothpaste, bus fare, cooking gas, shampoo, tea, soap, mobile data. Even the tiny things like chewing gum and the candles she used when electricity ran out, she stared at the list. Some things were obvious cuts. The monthly Wi-Fi bill? Gone. Streaming services? Cancelled. She sold a few clothes she hadn't worn in over a year. She sold an old gift set of perfumes someone once gave her. She even called her cousin to borrow an old laptop so she could use the public library's free internet. Every coin had to have a purpose now. Then she made a rule one she could live by. If it costs more than 2 lira and it isn't essential, it waits. She called it the 2 lira rule. It wasn't about never spending. It was about asking, is this helping me survive? Or is it just helping me escape? It was harder than she thought. The small temptations were everywhere. A chocolate bar at the corner store, a sale on boots she once wanted, an ad promising cheap online classes with hidden fees. But she stuck to her rule. Each time she said no, she felt a little stronger, a little clearer. She wasn't trying to build a comfortable life right now. The goal wasn't comfort. It was control. Control over her fear, control over her time, control over a future that had once felt like a door slammed shut. She started carrying coins in a jar, actual coins, and labeled it the exit jar. Every time she saved from saying no to something, she added a coin. It felt silly at first, but over time, it felt like a daily win. She learned to cook with fewer ingredients. She swapped meals with a neighbor once a week. She found free tutorials on basic graphic design and language translation. Not degrees, just skills. The days were still long. The job offers didn't pour in. But something was changing. She wasn't waiting anymore. She was acting. This was no longer a pause in her life. This was the start of something new. Built not on luck or hope, but on sense. And on sense. Amina didn't feel the change all at once. There was no loud moment, no fireworks, no sudden shift. It started small. One day, she got a reply to a blog editing job she'd applied for weeks ago. A travel site needed someone to fix grammar and rewrite a few paragraphs. It paid just enough for 2 proper meals. She took it with both hands. Then came another message. This time, a blogger in Canada wanted help rephrasing an article about ecotourism. Amina worked late into the night, researching and rewriting. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt good, like using a muscle that hadn't moved in a long time. By the end of the month, her notebook had a new section, Jobs Done. 3 entries. She smiled while writing them down. Soon the small jobs turned into full articles, then into full website rewrites. One morning she woke up to 5 notifications. None were from friends, all were from clients. Each message was a request, a task, a chance. She didn't need an office, just her borrowed laptop, her mind, and the new rules she'd taught herself. She still lived on less, but now it was by choice, not by force. For the first time in weeks, she cooked a proper meal: rice, vegetables, and grilled chicken. No substitutions, no skipped meals. She sat at her tiny table and ate slowly, breathing in the scent like it was gold. She had been hungry for so long, not just for food, but for proof that she could turn things around. With one of her first proper paychecks, she searched online for a second-hand camera. Not a fancy one, not even close to what she sold, but it worked. She clicked buy and waited by the door like a child waiting for a gift. When the package arrived, she held it like an old friend. It reminded her of who she used to be, but more importantly, it showed her who she was becoming again. Later that week, she sent her younger brother 50. Just a note attached, for school snacks. Don't tell mum. She laughed while hitting send. Not because it was a lot of money, it wasn't, but because it came from her. From this new, quiet life she was building from scraps. No one saw her success, no viral tweets, no blog post titled "How I Made It," no motivational speech with lights and a microphone, just her. Her notebook, her 2 lira rule, her borrowed laptop, and her belief that small wins, stacked daily, could turn into something solid. It wasn't luck, it wasn't magic, it was consistent sense and saving in cents. The world didn't get cheaper, rent stayed high, bread cost more, The economy shook. But Amina didn't. Her circumstances hadn't changed, she had. Months ago, she hit rock bottom. Not dramatic, just quiet. Unpaid bills, skipped meals, job applications ignored, and a bank alert showing 3.24. She didn't cry. She wrote 3 words: the exit plan. No magic. Just math, discipline, sacrifice. She cut expenses like leeches, used library Wi-Fi, sold old clothes, tracked every lira, and lived by the 2 rule. If it cost more than 2 and wasn't essential, it waited. It wasn't comfort, it was control. Her mindset shifted. Anxiety became clarity. She stopped waiting for the storm and walked through it. One night, she wrote, "If I waited for the storm to pass, I'd still be broke under an umbrella." Her blog edits turned into paid gigs, then articles, then websites. Her inbox buzzed with client briefs. She bought a used camera, sent 50 to her brother, cooked a hot meal, not luxury, but victory. No one saw these wins, but she lived them. One morning she whispered, "I didn't just survive, I rewired." She saved to empower herself, chased purpose, not distractions. She journaled, "Saving sense taught me discipline. Spending with sense gave me direction. Frugality became strength training. Every no to wants was a yes to her future." She said no to impulse buys, late night scrolling, and yes to peace, learning, progress. Not rich, but ready. 3 months saved, no panic, just plans. At night, by candlelight, she wrote, "Discipline isn't punishment, it's protection." She titled a new page, "The Rebuild: Building a Life with Margin, Peace, Dignity." Each morning she whispered, "Even if slow, I'll still go." To anyone stuck, you're not lazy or cursed, you're stuck. Write your exit plan. Save sense, spend sense. You don't need noise, you need clarity and courage. Follow for more stories like this. Subscribe if you're rebuilding, one choice at a time.